out for your right.
What's up, Hillman Talk? My name is Professor Hamilton, aka the Legal Plug. Welcome to Legal Studies 101. And today we're going to talk about civil rights. Did you know that many of the civil rights that you take for granted today were once illegal? So, why are civil rights so important? What are civil rights? Civil rights are privileges and rights that have been given to you as a citizen of the United States by law. They ensure equal treatment and prevent discrimination. To understand where you're going, you got to know where you've been. So let's talk about some foundational amendments that pertain to civil rights, and then we'll move forward through the civil rights movement and what's going on today. So let's start off with the 13th Amendment. Okay. So we know the 13th Amendment because it abolished slavery, or so we thought, right? So the 13th Amendment was passed in 1865 under the guise of abolishing slavery, but it didn't. Black Americans were still subjected to slavery under the Black Codes and Jim Crow. The Black Codes were laws that were put in place that still allowed America to enslave Black people. Under the Black Codes, many states required Black Americans to sign labor contracts. If they refused the Black Codes, they would be arrested, fined, or forced into unpaid labor. I also encourage you guys to read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander and to watch The 13th on Netflix. This will give you some context on how America has systematically oppressed Black people through the legal system since the beginning of time. The next amendment that I want to discuss is the 14th Amendment. Now, the 14th Amendment is known for two things: it's given citizenship rights to Black Americans and also equal protection under the laws. But we know that it didn't always go down like that. So, before the 14th Amendment, Black Americans weren't even considered citizens of this country. With all the free labor that Black Americans gave to this country, they still weren't considered citizens until the 14th Amendment was passed. We still don't quite have equal protection under the laws. The next important amendment was the 15th Amendment. So, the 15th Amendment is the amendment that gave Black men the right to vote, but Black men were still subjected to poll tax and also to literacy tests at the polls. So, these voter suppression tactics prevented African American men from voting. And we still see voter suppression tactics today, like strict ID laws, redistricting, gerrymandering, that kind of thing. And I would even venture to say that in this past election, we saw voter suppression through mail in ballots. Now, let's switch gears to the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s was a pivotal time for Black Americans. The civil rights movement brought about many of the rights that we still have today. I want to talk about a landmark Supreme Court case in 1954, Brown versus Board of Education. This made segregation in schools illegal. And then it wasn't until 10 years later where the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, and this made it illegal to discriminate in employment and to end legal segregation in public spaces. And then the next year, in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed, and this eliminated racial voting barriers. And so this stopped the literacy test and other forms of voter suppression. So, what's going on today? What are the problems that we're having from a civil rights perspective today? Well, I think one of the biggest ones that we have is racial profiling and police reform. And so over the past 5 years, 6 years, we've seen police reform explode as a need for Black Americans. Cases like George Floyd, Michael Brown, Breonna Taylor, and unfortunately, it's so many to name, brought about the need for police reform. And these cases also ignited conversations about systematic racism in police organizations. We also still have issues with voter suppression. And if you think about it, why would a group of people go out of their way to suppress the vote of a race? And if you could just catch a glimpse for one moment of what these people think about us, you will assume that power. And that's what the takeaway is here. They are working so hard to minimize and to reduce our efforts at every turn. And do you ever wonder why? It's because of the power that we have inside of ourselves and when we unite as a people. And that's the thing that I want to explain to you guys. I want you guys to see yourselves the way that they see you. We are a powerful group of people, a dynamic group of people, an amazing group of people. We are highly educated, we are highly creative, we are highly intuitive, and we have every single thing that they don't have. And they are working hard to take everything away from us. And we have to stand up, we need to unify, and we need to seek justice at every turn. You have power. The power is in your voice. Assume that power and get to work. Another area where we experience discrimination is employment and in housing. Studies show that Black applicants are less likely to get a loan on a home than white applicants. Studies also show that Black applicants are less likely to get an interview than white applicants. And there are also disparities in health and in education. And that is why these areas are constantly under attack. Did you know that Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women? In modern society, with all the advances in medicine that we have today, you ever wonder why that is? This is due to systematic inequities in healthcare. Our civil rights weren't just given to us, we had to fight for them. Stay informed, speak up, and please protect our civil rights. It's going to take all of us, one band, one sound, one voice. So I want you guys to think about this. What do civil rights mean to you? Why are they important to you? And let's bring those questions to class tonight and have an in depth discussion about civil rights and where do we go from here. And I'm going to leave you guys with this last point, and I think the most important point, and that is we have to vote. We have to get the vote out. We have to galvanize and we have to go to the polls. We have to support each other in that process and we need to be educated on it. We have midterm elections coming up. We have seats that can be flipped in the House and in the Senate, and we need to be focused on those areas and where those seats are. I will post a list of those seats so you guys can have access to them. If they are in your jurisdiction, start now, not tomorrow, today, to start to support these candidates and to get them in line to be able to run for these seats so that we can flip them. That is the task right now. That is the message. That is the job.